In today's video, we'll cover 4 important topics. How much super do you need to retire comfortably? How to boost your super? How to access your super? Who gets your super after you pass away? Here's how much super you need in your super account to retire comfortably. You probably know how much super you have now in your account, but do you know how much you'll have when you retire? The amount of super you'll need when you retire depends on a few things like 1. Number of years in retirement. 2. Whether you are single or in a couple. 3. Whether you plan to keep working a little bit. 4. How much you spend on a monthly basis. 5. Whether you own your home or you're still paying a mortgage. 6. What other assets or income you have. 7. Whether you are eligible for the age pension. 8. How much your super grows in retirement. 9. Whether you want to help the kids. Lots of things to think about, right? Let's imagine you live well into your 80s, or that's what most people want to live up to these days. This means that if you stop working at 65, you'll need retirement income for 20 years or more. According to ASFA retirement standards, they estimate that the lump sum required at retirement to support a comfortable lifestyle is $640,000 for a couple and $545,000 for a single person. This assumes a partial age pension also. A lot of studies across Australia suggest that many Australians could be likely to suffer from a shortfall in superannuation savings when it's time to retire, if they want to retire comfortably. Someone intelligent once said, "It's never too late to change your financial future, but it is much easier to play catch-up sooner rather than later." How much do you think you'll end up saving for retirement? The Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia, the ASFA, provides an industry retirement standard and looks into such kinds of figures. Trick question for you. Guess how much an average male age 60 in Australia has in his super? Only $170,445. For a modest living through all his retirement years, he needs about $430,000. That's a gap of around $260,000. Now, guess how much the average female age 60 in Australia has in her super? Only $147,143. Same as an average male, she needs $430,000 in total to go through all of her retirement. That's a gap of around $282,000. Just think about how you are tracking for your retirement. So now that we have your attention, let's look at a few things that can be done to boost your super so you can retire comfortably. First of all, check for any lost super. Money belonging to you might be sitting in an account that you've forgotten about. If you want more information about these, watch our previous video about super. If by any chance you have multiple super accounts, consider consolidating all of them in one, and you could save on fees and charges that could be eating into your balance. Give your current super a quick health check. Are you invested in the right investment profile for your financial needs? What is the level of insurance you have in your super? Have a look at all the fees you are paying in your super. Are you paying too much? How has your fund performed so far as compared to other super funds? Once you've performed these 3 basic checks, we'll look at some other options which are available to you. 1. Salary sacrificing. You can put extra cash money in your super from your before-tax salary, and it will only be taxed at 15%, rather than at your usual marginal tax rate, 19%, 32%, 35%, or 37%. Make sure your total super contributions, including any your employer makes on your behalf, don't exceed $25,000 per year. Speak to your payroll department to set up a salary sacrifice. 2. Personal tax-deductible contributions. If your employer doesn't offer salary sacrifice, or you're unemployed, or self-employed, or don't want a salary sacrifice, you can make a personal tax-deductible contribution to your super, which is also taxed at 15%, and subject to the $25,000 per year limit. 3. Make an after-tax contribution. You can also make contributions to your super from your after-tax pay. These payments are called non-concessional contributions because you've already paid tax on the money. You can make up to $100,000 in non-concessional contributions each financial year. 4. Spouse contributions. If your partner is out of work, a stay-at-home parent, working part-time, or earning less than $40,000, Adding to their super could benefit you both financially when you both retire. 5. Government contributions. If you're a low or middle income earner, you may be eligible for contributions from the government or tax offsets when you add after-tax money to your super. Ask your tax accountant to see if you qualify for that. Remember, the government has set caps that limit the level of contributions you can make into super for each financial year before more tax applies. Ensure you know the current limits and how they may change in the future. If you want to discuss strategies on how you might be able to boost your super, speak to a financial planner. Looks like you have a better understanding of your super and how you will retire comfortably in the future. But are you curious on how to access all your super you have been saving for years when you retire? Accessing your super is limited to people above a certain age, which is known as the preservation age. The preservation age is a restriction preventing people from accessing their superannuation until their retirement, unless they meet a condition of release. The preservation age depends on when you were born. Before July 1st, 1960, the preservation age is 55. July 1st, 1960 to June 30th, 1961, preservation age is 56. July 1st, 1961 to June 30th, 1962, age 57. July 1st, 1962 to June 30th, 1963, age 58. July 1st, 1963 to June 30th, 1964, age 59. And from July 1st, 1964, the preservation age is 60. You do not immediately have access to your super once you reach the preservation age. You need to have retired as well. Once you reach age 65, however, you can access your superannuation even if you haven't retired. Now, the interesting part is you can actually access your super early under some special but limited circumstances. 1. A terminal medical condition. An illness or injury that is likely to result in death within 2 years will allow you to withdraw your super early if you are approved by 2 registered medical practitioners. 2. Severe financial hardship. You are unable to pay your living expenses despite being on Commonwealth benefits for 26 weeks. You can withdraw parts of your super. 3. Losing your home. You may be eligible for an early release of superannuation for mortgage assistance if your bank or council is threatening to repossess or sell your home due to arrears on your mortgage or council rates, and the property under threat is your usual place of residence, and you are responsible for the mortgage or rates and repayments, and you can't afford to pay the arrears without accessing your superannuation. 4. Palliative care. You may be eligible to access your super early to cover palliative care expenses for yourself or a dependent if you or your dependent has a terminal illness, and you or your dependent need assistance paying palliative care expenses, and you can't afford to pay for the expenses without accessing your superannuation. 5. Temporary incapacity. You may be able to access your super early if you are temporarily unable to work or need to work less hours because of a physical or mental medical condition. 6. Permanent incapacity. You have a permanent physical or mental medical condition that is likely to stop you from ever working again in a job you were qualified to do by education, training, or experience. At least 2 medical practitioners need to certify if this is the case. 7. Funereal expense. You may be able to access your super if a dependent has passed away and you need assistance paying funereal expenses and you can't afford the expenses without accessing your superannuation. 8. Leaving Australia permanently. If you're a temporary resident in Australia, you can claim payment of your superannuation money if you entered Australia on a temporary visa and your visa is no longer in effect, and you have departed Australia, and you are not an Australian or New Zealand citizen or a permanent resident of Australia. Be aware about the superannuation tax liabilities. The tax liabilities associated with unlocking superannuation early, that is, before you turn 55 or 60, are different for different situations. Please check in with a financial expert if you are planning to unlock your super early. Who gets my super if I pass away? While your will dictates who gets what when it comes to your belongings and assets, your super isn't counted as one of your assets due to it being money held in a company or trust. The main way you can do this is by making either a binding or non-binding nomination of beneficiary to your super fund, so that they can register who you have explicitly requested for your super to go to. A superannuation death benefit can't be left or paid to just anyone. Under current superannuation legislation, there are reasonably strict guidelines about who is entitled to receive, and who the trustee can pay a death benefit to. Essentially, death benefits must be paid to people who were a dependent of the deceased member and/or the deceased's legal personal representative. Under the legislation, the term dependent can refer to the spouse/de facto partner of the member, any child of the member, whether biological, step, or adopted, any person who the trustee considers to have been wholly or partially dependent on the member at the time of the member's death, and any person who the trustee considers having been in an interdependency relationship with the member at the time of the member's death. Note, accessing super after anyone's death is a very tricky situation, and the Superannuation Complaints Tribunal has received many complaints about it throughout the years. Please discuss with your family lawyers to set up everything in advance.